I drove 800 miles to see my first grandchild's celebration. My son's answer was calling the police on me at his baby shower. He said I was crazy and didn't belong there. He forgot I was the one who helped buy his big fancy house. My next phone call wasn't to him. It was to the bank people who gave him money. And he was about to learn what happens when the person who promised to pay calls them up. Before we start, thank you for watching Granny's Voice. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Jessie Motal from Canada. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let me tell you what my own son did to me. My name is Martha Jenkins and I'm 72 years old. I live alone in a tiny house that's all paid for in the mountains of Tennessee. It's where the air smells like pine trees and you can hear owls at night. Life is simple and quiet here. But my heart lived far away in a huge house in the city of Nashville. That's where my son Tommy lives with his wife Jessica. I worked my whole life cleaning offices and saving every penny to help Tommy have a better life than me. He was my only child, my baby boy who I raised all by myself after his daddy left us. I gave him everything I had. Every dollar I saved went to his school, his clothes, his dreams. When he grew up and wanted to buy a big house with Jessica, they didn't have enough money. The bank said they needed someone older with more money to help them. That someone was me. I remember when Tommy called me up crying. "Mama," he said, "we found the perfect house but we need your help to get it." I didn't think twice about it. I loved my boy more than anything in this world. I drove all the way down to Nashville to that cold bank building and put my name on their house papers. The number was so big it scared me. But I did it for love. And for 3 whole years, I've been sending them money from my little Social Security check to help pay for that house. They didn't know I was eating beans and rice most nights just to help them keep their dream home. Tommy thought he was successful all by himself. He forgot his old mama was the reason he could afford anything. In his mind, that beautiful house and fancy life was because he was smart and worked hard. My help became invisible to him, like I didn't matter anymore. We only talked on the phone sometimes, and he always seemed busy or bothered. I saw pictures of their perfect life on Facebook. Fancy dinners, expensive trips, happiness that seemed to have no room for a simple mountain woman like me. But then came news that filled my heart with joy. Jessica was having a baby. My first grandchild. A little one I could love and spoil. The baby shower was going to be at their house with all their important friends. Nobody invited me, but I knew Tommy would want his mama there for such a special day. I spent 2 weeks making a beautiful baby quilt with my own hands. Every stitch was made with love and excitement for this precious new baby. On a sunny Saturday morning, I wrapped that quilt in pretty paper and got in my old truck. 800 miles is a long drive for an old lady, but I was so happy I could barely sit still. As I drove through the Tennessee mountains down to the busy streets of Nashville, I thought about when Tommy was little. I remembered when he was 10 and wanted a bicycle more than anything. I worked extra jobs for months, cleaning houses at night after my regular job, just to buy him that bike. I can still see his face on Christmas morning when he saw that shiny red bicycle. He hugged me so tight and said, "Mama, you're the best mama in the whole world." That's the boy I was driving to see. The son whose dreams I always put first, even when it meant I had nothing left for myself. I was going to surprise my Tommy. I was going to celebrate my grandchild. I was finally going to be part of their perfect life. I had no idea I was driving toward the most hurtful day of my whole life. The 800-mile drive from my little mountain home to the fancy Nashville suburbs felt like a journey to another world. The sun was shining bright, my favorite country music was playing on the radio, and that handmade baby quilt next to me felt like a symbol of all my love. I could picture Tommy's face when he saw me walk in. The surprise, the joy, maybe even some happy tears. I'm his mother after all, and this was his baby shower. Of course he'd be thrilled to see me. I pulled up to their house, a massive brick mansion on a street full of perfect lawns and expensive cars. The party was already going strong. Cars were parked everywhere, so I had to park way down the street and walk. My steps were slow, my heart beating fast as I got closer to the sounds of laughter and music. The front door was wide open and I could see inside. This wasn't a small family gathering like I expected. It was huge, like something from a magazine. The house was packed with dozens of fancy-dressed people drinking wine and eating tiny foods I'd never seen before. The decorations were incredible. Giant flower arrangements, balloons touching the ceiling, a cake that looked like art. This was a party meant to impress rich people, to show off wealth. I stood in that doorway feeling very small in my simple dress, holding my homemade gift. I spotted Tommy across the room looking handsome in an expensive suit, surrounded by his successful friends. He looked happy and confident and like a complete stranger to me. Then he saw me. The smile disappeared from his face instantly. His eyes got wide with what looked like horror. He quickly said something to his friends and rushed toward me, his face red with anger. "Mom!" he hissed in a mean whisper, grabbing my arm and pulling me back outside away from his guests. "What are you doing here? You can't just show up like this." I stared at him confused, my smile fading away. "What do you mean, Tommy? I drove all this way to surprise you for your baby shower." "A surprise?" he repeated with a mean laugh. "This is a disaster. Look at you, your clothes, everything. You don't fit in here, Mom. My friends, Jessica's parents, important people are here. What will they think?" His words hit me like slaps in the face. I looked down at my clean, simple dress, my comfortable shoes, the carefully wrapped gift in my hands, and felt a wave of shame wash over me. I was an embarrassment. His country mother was ruining his perfect, sophisticated life. Jessica appeared beside him then, her face cold and angry. She looked at me like I was something dirty that got tracked in on someone's shoe. She didn't even say hello to me. She just looked at Tommy and said, "Handle this now." And my son, my baby boy who I raised and loved and sacrificed everything for, chose her. He chose his new rich life over his own mother who gave him everything. "You have to leave, Mom," he said, his voice cold as ice. "You're ruining everything. You're embarrassing us." He didn't even have to say more. He just nodded to a big man in a dark suit who was standing nearby. I realized this man was hired security for their fancy party. The guard stepped forward looking serious. "Ma'am," he said not meanly but firmly, "I need you to come with me." He took my arm and started walking me away from the house, away from the party, away from my own son. I was too shocked and heartbroken to fight. I was being escorted out of my own son's baby shower like I was a criminal. As he walked me down that long driveway past all those expensive cars, past all those fancy people who were now staring and whispering, I felt my whole world falling apart. My mind kept replaying every horrible moment. The disgusted look from one of Jessica's friends. Someone whispering, "Oh my God, is that his mother?" The satisfied look on Jessica's face as she watched from the porch, her hand on her pregnant belly, watching me get thrown out like garbage. She had won. She had successfully gotten rid of the embarrassing country mother who threatened to ruin her perfect day. I sat in my old truck on that quiet street for over an hour. The baby quilt still sitting next to me, a sad reminder of love that had been so cruelly rejected. I watched their party continue without me. The sounds of their celebration felt like they were mocking me. My heart that had been so full of love and hope just hours before now felt cold and empty and dead. The shock, the grief, the complete humiliation, they were all there burning inside me. But underneath all that pain, a new feeling started to grow. A feeling I hadn't felt in years. It was cold and quiet and absolutely furious. My son's love was all fake. My sacrifice had been met with the worst kind of disrespect. I wasn't family to them. I was something to be ashamed of. And that's when I remembered something very important. My name wasn't just in their hearts. It was on their house papers. And I, the woman they just had thrown out like trash, was about to take away their whole fake perfect world. The 800-mile drive back to Tennessee was a journey through pure rage. The shocked and heartbroken mother who had cried in her truck was gone. In her place was a 72-year-old woman who had sacrificed everything, been called an embarrassment, and had finally had enough. I didn't cry. I didn't listen to music. I just drove with my hands gripping that steering wheel tight. My mind was working like a machine, thinking through every detail of my son's betrayal. He hadn't just not invited me. He had thrown me out. He had used a hired guard to remove his own mother from his home, a home that MY Life Savings had made possible. He had chosen the approval of his snobbish rich wife over the love of the woman who raised him alone. He had looked at my lifetime of sacrifice and called it embarrassing. The word echoed in my mind. Embarrassing. My simple dress was embarrassing. My homemade gift was embarrassing. My love, my presence, my very existence was embarrassing to him. As I drove through the night, my anger turned into a plan. A quiet, legal, and completely devastating plan. My son and his wife cared so much about money and status and what people thought. They had turned our relationship into a business deal where I was a problem. Fine. I would respond in the only language they understood. Money. I thought about the mortgage, that scary document I had signed years ago. I remembered the bank manager explaining what it meant to be a co-signer. I wasn't just a name on paper. I was the reason they could afford that house at all. My good credit, my savings, my promise to pay. That was the foundation of their entire life. And they had just blown up that foundation with their cruel, thoughtless actions. I got home as the sun was coming up, my body tired from more than just the long drive. It was the tiredness of a lifetime of unappreciated love. But I didn't rest. I went straight to my old filing cabinet where I keep all my important papers and found it. The original mortgage agreement, thick and full of confusing legal words that had once scared me. Now I read it with new clear understanding. I wasn't just a co-signer. I was the primary co-signer. My financial strength was the whole reason they got that loan. And in the small print, I found exactly what I was looking for. A section that talked about what happens if the co-signer situation changes. It said in clear language that if the person who promised to help pay formally tells the bank that their relationship with the borrowers has broken down so badly they can't support the loan anymore, the bank has the right to demand all the money back immediately. It was like a kill switch. A legal way to protect the bank from exactly this situation. A slow, cold smile spread across my face. My son and his wife had treated me like I was worthless. I was about to become the most expensive mistake they ever made. I spent Sunday resting and getting ready. My sadness was hardening into unshakable determination. I wasn't a grieving mother anymore. I was a financial partner about to report a bad investment. On Monday morning, I wouldn't drive back to Nashville. I wouldn't confront them or make a scene. I would simply go to a quiet hotel and make one calm, completely devastating phone call. A phone call that would bring their whole house of cards tumbling down. They had called the police on me. I was about to call the bank on them. And my call would be much more powerful than theirs. On Monday morning, I checked into a nice, quiet hotel in Knoxville. It was far enough from my small town to be private, but close enough to feel like home territory. I sat in that clean, plain room with the mortgage papers spread out on the desk in front of me. My heart was beating steady and calm. The time for anger and sadness was over. Now it was time for business. At exactly 10 o'clock in the morning, I made the call. I didn't call the regular customer service number. I called the direct line for the bank's risk management department, a number I had found with some careful searching online. I wasn't a customer with a complaint. I was a guarantor with a warning. A professional woman answered the phone. Risk management, this is Linda. Good morning, Linda. I began, my voice calm and clear and full of quiet authority. My name is Martha Jenkins. I'm calling to report a serious change regarding a mortgage I co-signed. There's been a complete breakdown in my relationship with the borrowers. There was silence on the other end, then the sound of typing. Okay, Mrs. Jenkins, can you give me the loan number? I read it right from the document in front of me. I gave her the Nashville address. I gave her all my personal information to prove who I was and that I had the legal right to make this call. "Yes, I have the account here, Mrs. Jenkins," she said, sounding more serious now. "What exactly is the problem?" "The problem, Linda," I replied, my voice as steady as a rock, "is that I am officially withdrawing my financial guarantee for this loan. There has been a complete and final breakdown in my relationship with my son and daughter-in-law. I can no longer promise to help pay for their house. I am officially reporting this loan as high risk for not being paid." The casual tone in her voice disappeared instantly, replaced by sharp professional attention. "That's a very serious statement, Mrs. Jenkins," she said, clearly surprised. "Can you give me more details?" "I can," I said. "This past Saturday, I was physically removed from my son's home by police at his request during his baby shower. He said my presence was embarrassing to him. I believe this shows our family relationship is completely broken, as outlined in the loan agreement. Furthermore," I added, my voice now like a piece of ice, "I have reason to believe their financial situation is much worse than they told you when they first applied. I can no longer be responsible for this risk." There was a long, heavy silence on the other end. I could almost hear her mind working, processing what this meant. A co-signer, the very person whose financial strength made the loan possible, wasn't just pulling out. She was actively warning the bank that the loan was dangerous. For any bank, this was like a fire alarm going off. "Thank you for this information, Mrs. Jenkins," Linda said finally, her voice now completely serious. "We'll be sending this to our legal department right away. A senior loan officer will contact you soon." I had done it. I had lit the fuse that would blow up their perfect world. I spent the rest of that day in my quiet hotel room. I ordered food from room service and watched old movies on TV. I didn't feel happy or triumphant. Not yet. I felt only a deep, tired sense that something necessary had been finished. I had just destroyed my own son's life with a single 10-minute phone call. It was a terrible thing to have to do, but it was the right thing. The call from the bank's legal department came the next morning. It was a man named Mr. Patterson, a senior vice president. His voice was low and serious. He asked me to tell my story again, which I did with the same calm, clear honesty. He asked me if my decision was final and couldn't be changed. I told him it absolutely was. "I understand," he said when I finished talking. "Thank you for being so honest with us, Mrs. Jenkins. This gives us a lot to think about. We'll be reviewing the loan and taking all necessary steps to protect the bank's money." I knew what that meant in bank language. Protecting their money meant using every legal tool they had to get their money back before they lost it all. My son and his wife, so comfortable in their beautiful, expensive house, had no idea that a financial tornado was heading straight for them. A tornado that I had created and sent their way. The bank moved fast and without mercy, like a shark that smells blood in the water. When a cosigner, the financial foundation of a huge loan, officially withdraws support and warns that the borrowers might not pay, banks don't wait around. It's their worst nightmare. Their legal team immediately went to work. They looked at Tommy and Jessica's original application and saw what I had known all along, that with their modest jobs and credit card debt, they never would have qualified for such a big loan without my perfect credit backing them up. I wasn't just a co-signer. I was the entire reason they got that loan. And I had just calmly and legally declared that I could no longer be trusted to help. The bank had no choice but to protect themselves. They used a clause in the mortgage contract that gave them the right to demand all the money back immediately if there was a major change that made the loan more dangerous. The official letter arrived at Tommy's house on a Thursday by certified mail. I can only imagine what happened when they opened it. Tommy, probably still feeling proud of his successful baby shower, would have seen the intimidating envelope from the bank's legal department. Maybe he thought it was just boring paperwork. Then he would have read the words that would destroy his world. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, due to a major change in your loan conditions, specifically your primary cosigner withdrawing support, we are demanding immediate payment of your full loan balance within 30 days. If you cannot pay the full amount, we will immediately begin foreclosure proceedings to take your house." The panic must have been instant and complete. The full balance, hundreds of thousands of dollars, was impossible for them to pay. They were trapped. Their dream house had suddenly become a financial prison. But the bank wasn't done. The letter would have offered one alternative. You may apply for a new loan without your original cosigner, subject to standard income and credit verification. And that was checkmate because they couldn't qualify. Their credit was maxed out. Their income, without my secret monthly help, wasn't nearly enough for a loan that big. They were completely stuck. The frantic, panicked phone call from Tommy came that evening. I'd been waiting for it. I answered after 2 rings, my voice calm and peaceful. "Hello. Mom," he screamed, his voice raw with terror. "The bank sent a letter. They want all the money now. They said you pulled out. What did you do? You've ruined us." I let him scream for a moment, his panic like music to my ears. "I didn't do anything wrong, Tommy," I replied, my voice as cool as a winter morning. "I simply told the bank the truth, that our family relationship was completely broken. You proved that very clearly when you had the police remove me from your home." "But that was just a misunderstanding," he stammered, his lies now desperate and pathetic. "Was it?" I asked quietly. "It seemed very clear to me. You made your choice, son. You chose your fancy new life over your own mother. Now you have to live with what that choice costs. It turns out that without your embarrassing country mama's name on your mortgage, your fancy life isn't as secure as you thought." "But we'll lose our house," he cried. "That sounds like your problem," I replied without any sympathy. "I suggest you talk to Jessica. She seems like a woman with all the answers." I hung up the phone, my hand perfectly steady. The house of cards they had built on my love and sacrifice was now falling down around them. They had called me a liability. I had just become the one who destroyed their loan. What happened next wasn't one big dramatic event, but a slow, painful, very public collapse of my son's perfect life. The bank's demand for immediate payment was a financial death sentence, and everyone knew it. They were thrown into complete panic mode. They couldn't possibly pay off the mortgage, and their attempts to get a new loan without me were exactly what I knew they'd be: a series of humiliating rejections. Their income was too low, their debt too high. No bank would help them. They were forced to do the one thing that would announce their failure to the whole world. They had to sell their dream house, and fast, before the bank took it from them. The beautiful big house in the exclusive Nashville suburb, the one that had been the stage for their social climbing, the one they had banned me from, now had a stark, ugly "for sale" sign on its perfect lawn. It was a public monument to their greed and stupidity. Their lives completely fell apart. Their important friends, the ones they had been so desperate to impress, now avoided them like they had some disease. Financial failure is social poison that rich people don't want to catch. Their marriage, built on shared ambition and showing off, crumbled under the enormous weight of their new reality. They fought constantly. Their arguments echoed through their now empty house, voices sharp with blame and anger. They called me many times. They begged. They cried. They threatened. They promised to change. They offered apologies that were as empty and worthless as their bank account. "Mom, please." Tommy had wept into the phone one night. "Just call the bank. Tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you'll help us again. We'll lose everything." I had listened to his pathetic, selfish begging and felt nothing. No pity, no sympathy. Only the cold, hard satisfaction of a lesson finally learned. "I'm sorry, Tommy," I replied, my voice calm and final. "But I am no longer financially connected to you or your wife. I have permanently withdrawn my support. Good luck to you both." Then I blocked his phone number. My revenge was complete. It hadn't been a messy, emotional fight. It had been one quiet, strategic phone call. I hadn't crashed their party. I had foreclosed on their entire fake life with a single devastating move. I never saw them again. They sold the house at a huge loss. Their dreams of profit turned to dust. The last I heard, they had divorced, their partnership of greed unable to survive the harsh reality of consequences. And me. I stayed in my small, quiet home in the Tennessee mountains. My peace restored, my dignity reclaimed. My revenge wasn't in their destruction, but in my own quiet, unshakable strength. I had been called an embarrassment, treated like something shameful, a woman to be removed by police. But in the end, I was the one who held the real power. I was the one who proved that a mother's love, when betrayed, can become the most expensive lesson of all. They thought I was weak because I was old and simple and from the country. They thought my love made me powerless. They were wrong. My love had been their foundation, and when they broke it, everything they built came crashing down. I had given my son everything. My money, my sacrifice, my unconditional support. And when he chose to be ashamed of me instead of grateful, I simply took it all back. The bank didn't care about his excuses or his tears. They cared about one thing, getting their money back. And without me guaranteeing that loan, Tommy and Jessica were nothing but a bad risk that needed to be eliminated. In the end, I learned something important about myself. I wasn't just a giving, loving mother. I was also a woman who knew her worth and wouldn't accept being treated like garbage. My son had forgotten that the same strength that let me raise him alone, work multiple jobs, and sacrifice everything for his dreams was still inside me. He just found out it could work in the opposite direction too. Some people might say what I did was mean or cruel. But I say it was justice. I had spent decades being taken for granted, having my sacrifices treated like they didn't matter. When my own child chose to be embarrassed by me instead of proud of me, when he chose strangers' opinions over his mother's love, he made his choice. I simply made mine. The beautiful thing about having your name on someone's mortgage is that it gives you real power. Not the power to hurt them, but the power to stop helping them hurt you. I didn't destroy Tommy's life. I just stopped building it for him. And when the foundation I provided was gone, his house of cards fell down all by itself. That's what happens when you build your success on someone else's sacrifice and then treat that person like they're worthless. Eventually they remember they have choices too. I sleep peacefully now in my little mountain home. The phone doesn't ring with desperate calls anymore. My bank account is my own again. Most importantly, my heart is at peace. I raised my son with love, gave him every opportunity, and when he needed help, I provided it without question. But I also taught him the most valuable lesson of his life, that actions have consequences, and family love isn't something you can take for granted forever. If he ever has children of his own, maybe he'll remember that lesson. Maybe he'll treat his mother better than he treated his. And if those children ever grow up and think they're too good for their simple, loving parents, maybe they'll remember the story of Grandma Martha who drove 800 miles with love in her heart and a handmade quilt in her hands, only to be thrown out like trash. Maybe they'll remember what happened next and choose differently. That would be the best revenge of all, turning my pain into wisdom that protects future grandmothers from the heartbreak I experienced. Until then, I'm content with the lesson I taught. Love is powerful, but it's not unlimited. Respect is earned, not owed. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for someone who takes you for granted is to stop letting them. That's a truth worth more than any house, any amount of money, any approval from people who don't really matter. And that truth is what I'll hold on to for the rest of my days. Thank you for listening to Granny's Voice.